This photo is the last time I heard from my brother Benjamin. He and his fiancée Aaliyah sent this to our family chat on July 14th, 2011. They were on a road trip clearing out our old family farmhouse before it was sold. An hour later, his phone went dead. We spent the next 8 months searching the woods, a part of me believing they just ran off. Then the spring thaw came and the police did one last search of the property. If you've ever felt that cold, sudden drop in your stomach when a loved one's call goes unanswered, you know the feeling that started that day and that lives with me still. My name is Caitlin, and it's been 14 years. 14 years since I've heard my brother's laugh. You know, it's funny what time does. It doesn't heal. Not really. It just smooths the edges. It turns this screaming, jagged pain into a heavy, dull stone you learn to carry. I'm 42 now. I have a life, a husband, a daughter who has Ben's eyes. But every July, the stone gets heavier, the edges feel sharp again, and I find myself staring at this photo. It sits on my desk, the last moment of them. Benjamin. Ben. He was my little brother by 2 years, but he was always the one who took care of everyone. He was the fixer. When our parents' sink was leaking, Ben was there. When I had my first real breakup, he was the one who showed up with 2 spoons and a tub of ice cream, no questions asked. He was good, just purely good. And Aaliyah, she was the same. They fit. They were that couple, the ones you see and just think, oh, okay, that's how it's supposed to work. They were saving up for a wedding, planning a life. They deserved that life. The reason they were on that road, the reason that map is on their console, was because of our grandfather, Arthur, my dad's dad. Arthur was difficult. He wasn't a warm cookie-baking grandpa. He was an engineer, worked on government contracts back in the 60s and 70s. Cold War stuff. He was brilliant, but he was paranoid. He lived his whole life like he was braced for impact. After our grandmother died, he pushed everyone away, including my dad. He holed up in that old stone farmhouse in rural Pennsylvania, hours from anyone. When Arthur died just a few weeks before this photo was taken, no one was really surprised. He'd been sick, but he left a mess. That farmhouse, it was ours, and my parents, they just wanted to be done. They wanted to sell it to close that chapter, but it was full of, well, Arthur's life. Decades of junk, projects, and who knew what else. My dad was dreading it, the emotional weight of sifting through the life of a man who never really loved him back. And Ben, being Ben, stepped in. I'll do it, Dad, he said, and Aaliyah and I will go. We'll make a weekend of it, a little road trip. We'll box up anything that looks important and call a junk service for the rest. You shouldn't have to. I remember telling him not to. Ben, that place is creepy. It's in the middle of nowhere. Just let them hire people. He laughed, that easy, warm laugh. It's fine, Kate. It'll be an adventure. Besides, Aaliyah wants to see if the family ghost is real. The adventure. That's what this photo was. The start of their adventure. I remember it popping up in our family group chat. On our way, Aaliyah had texted. They looked so happy, so young, oblivious. My mom texted back, be safe, call us when you get there. An hour later, my dad texted, found any of grandfather's gold bars yet? Ha ha. Ben's last message came through at 4:17 p.m. Made it. This place is even creepier than I remember. Cellar is next. Love you guys. See you Sunday. See you Sunday. Sunday came and went. No call. We figured, they were busy, driving back. Maybe they'd hit traffic, but by Sunday night, the silence started to feel wrong. It wasn't like Ben, not at all. I called his phone, straight to voicemail. I called Aaliyah's voicemail. My mom was trying to be calm. Oh, the reception out there is terrible. They probably just started driving and their phones are dead. But I knew. I felt it. That cold drop. Monday morning, my dad and I were in his car. We drove the 5 hours to that farmhouse. It was the longest drive of my life. We didn't talk. We just listened to the hum of the tires, both of us picturing 100 scenarios, a car crash, a breakdown, all of them better than the one we couldn't voice. We pulled up the long gravel driveway, and my heart stopped. Their car was there. It was just parked, right by the front porch, exactly where they would have left it. We ran to it. I ripped open the passenger door, and I think that's when I really knew they were gone. Aaliyah's purse was on the floor. Her purse. Her wallet was in it. Ben's wallet was in the center console, right next to the map they'd been using. Their phones were plugged into the charger dead. They hadn't run off. They hadn't been carjacked. They had gotten out of this car, walked into that house, and vanished. We called 911. The state police came. The local sheriff. They swarmed the property. My dad and I, we just stood by our car watching. It felt like a movie, like I was outside my own body. They searched the house. It was just as Ben had said, creepy and half finished. There were boxes in the living room labeled in Aaliyah's neat handwriting. Kitchen. Books. In the kitchen, there was a cutting board on the counter, a loaf of bread, a knife, a jar of peanut butter, a half-made sandwich. It was like they had been interrupted mid-motion. "They're here," I kept saying to the detective, a man named David. "They have to be here." He was patient but firm. "Ma'am, we've searched the house, closets, attic, every room." "What about the cellar?" my dad asked. I remember Detective David sighing. "We checked. It's just an old root cellar, stone walls, dirt floor, full of old canning shelves and junk. No one's there. We're starting a grid search of the woods. They probably went for a walk, got lost." A walk? Leaving their wallets? Leaving a sandwich half made? It made no sense. The search lasted for weeks. Dogs, volunteers, helicopters. They found nothing. Not a footprint. Not a piece of clothing. Nothing. And then winter came. The searches were paused. The snow buried the farmhouse. It buried the woods. And it buried our hope. It was the first of the 8 months. The holidays that year, I don't even know how we survived them. There were 2 empty chairs at the table. My mother would just go quiet. She'd stand in the kitchen, stirring a pot that wasn't even on, just staring out the window. My dad, he just broke. He'd sit in his recliner and stare at the wall. The guilt was eating them alive. The guilt of asking Ben to go. And me? I was angry. I was furious at my grandfather for being this paranoid monster who lived in a fortress, at the police for giving up, at the snow for stopping the search, at Ben for being so good. The police had their theories. A no-body homicide, a drifter. Maybe they had run off, staged it. But I knew Ben. He wouldn't do that to our mom. He wouldn't. So I started my own investigation. I couldn't just sit there. I couldn't wait for the snow to melt. I took a leave of absence from my job. I spent my days in the local library of that tiny Pennsylvania town, digging. I was going to figure out who Arthur Miller really was. I was going to tear his life apart until I found an answer. I read old newspapers. I looked up his service records. But the real break came when I went to the county records office. It was a small, dusty room in the back of the courthouse. The clerk was a woman in her 60s named Sarah. She had a kind, tired face. "Oh, honey," she said when I told her what I was looking for. "The Miller property. Such a tragedy. I knew Arthur, you know, back when. Strange bird." "I need to see everything you have on it," I said, "on blueprints, permits, surveys, anything." She wheeled out a cart stacked with heavy, crumbling binders. "Be my guest." For 3 days I sat at that wooden table. My hands were black with ink and dust. I found the original 1920 blueprint of the house. It showed the farmhouse, the barn, and a simple square root cellar, just like the police said. I found a 1972 survey, same thing, and then in a binder from 1983 I found it. It wasn't a blueprint. It was a permit application, filed by Arthur Miller. The application was for the agricultural storage sublevel, and it had been denied. The county inspector had written in red ink, "Structure does not meet code, non-compliant materials." But stapled to the back of the denied application was a piece of paper, a hand-drawn sketch almost. It was a diagram of the cellar. It showed the original stone walls, and then inside that, a new, smaller reinforced square, a box within a box, and at the bottom in Arthur's spiky, precise handwriting were 2 notes. Note 1, existing bank material to be utilized. Note 2, fail-safe exterior latch. My blood went cold. Exterior latch. I ran out of that office. I didn't even say goodbye to Sarah. I drove. There was an old-timers bar in town. I'd heard the cops mention it. I walked in. It was 2 in the afternoon, dark inside, smelled of stale beer. A few old men were at the bar. I'm looking for someone who knew Arthur Miller, I said, maybe a little too loud. One man at the end of the bar slowly turned on his stool. He had a long gray beard. Knew him, he grunted. Name's Walter. Why? I sat down. I ordered a coffee I didn't want. My brother. He's missing. From the farmhouse. Walter's face softened. Ah, the kids. Yeah, we all heard. Terrible. Walter, you knew my grandfather. Was he just paranoid, or was he building something? Walter took a long drink of his beer. Arthur, yeah, he was always a little off, but after that 79 thing, 3 Mile Island, though, that wasn't too far from here. It broke something in him. He was convinced the end was nigh, convinced the Russians or the government or somebody was coming for us all. I held my breath. Did he build anything? Build anything? Walter let out a dry laugh. He was always building, but the big one must have been 82, 83. He got it in his head he needed a legacy shelter. His words, a place to ride out the storm. I remember, because I was driving my tractor past one day and there was a massive flatbed truck backing up his driveway. Had to pull over. What was on it? I asked. My voice was shaking. Looked like scrap. Big, round piece of steel. I asked him about it. He got all puffed up, said it was a Class A bank vault door from some bank in Harrisburg that went under, said they practically gave it to him. I laughed at him. Told him he was nuts. He didn't like that much. Didn't talk to me again after that. A bank vault door. Existing bank material. An exterior latch. Oh my God, I whispered. Oh, Ben. I drove straight to the police station. Detective David was at his desk. He looked tired. He looked done with this case. Caitlin, he sighed, we told you. There's nothing. I slammed the permit application on his desk. You searched a root cellar. You didn't search his cellar. He built a shelter. A vault. It's in the cellar. You missed it. He looked at the paper. He looked at me. I could see the doubt in his eyes. A hand-drawn map? A story from the town drunk? And a denied permit, I shot back. And a missing bank vault door. And my brother. You missed it. You have to go back. You have to. I must have looked insane. My hair was a mess. I hadn't slept. I was crying. But I think he finally saw the logic. Or maybe he just saw a woman so broken he couldn't say no. The snow's supposed to break next week, he said quietly. The spring thaw is coming. I'll get a warrant. We'll do one last sweep. One last sweep. Don't get your hopes up, kid. Those 2 weeks were the purest form of hell I have ever experienced. The waiting, knowing they were in that house, somewhere. Were they waiting? A part of me, a tiny, stupid, desperate part, thought maybe they were alive. Maybe Arthur had stalked it. Maybe they were just trapped. March 28th, 2012, 8 months and 14 days after they vanished. I met Detective David and my dad at the farmhouse. The snow was finally gone. The ground was a brown, muddy soup. The missing posters on the trees were just gray pulp. The yellow police tape was brittle, flapping in the cold wind. We walked into the house. The half-made sandwich was gone, taken as evidence, but the house still smelled like them. Aaliyah's perfume. Ben's? I don't know. Just Ben. We went to the cellar. The air was damp and cold. It smelled like mildew and rotten potatoes. It was exactly as I remembered. A big, open space, stone walls, dirt floor, and against the back wall a row of tall, rickety wooden shelves. They were full of old canning jars, thick with dust and spider webs. "See, Caitlin?" David said, his voice gentle. "It's just a cellar. We've been over every inch." My dad just stood by the stairs, his face pale. He couldn't look. I walked past the detective. I was running on something other than hope. I was running on certainty. I went to the back wall. The shelves were nailed into the stone. He said exterior latch, I whispered. He said bank vault door. I started pulling at the shelves. They were heavy, half rotten. "Ma'am, don't," David started. "Help me," I screamed at him. "Help me." He saw my face. He and his deputy grabbed the shelf. They pulled. The old wood groaned and snapped. The whole unit came crashing down in a cloud of dust and shattered glass. We all coughed, waving the air, and when the dust settled, we saw it. It wasn't a stone wall. It was steel. It was round. It was massive. It was a bank vault door set right into the stone, just like Walter had said. My dad let out a sound, a small animal sound, and he just crumpled. He sat down hard on the dirt floor. Detective David just stared. "My God," he whispered. It's been here this whole time, hidden, behind the shelves." I stumbled forward. My legs felt like water. I touched the metal. It was freezing cold. I saw the handle, a big metal wheel. I tried to turn it. It wouldn't budge. And then I saw it. To the side of the door, a massive steel lever, a latch. It was in the down position, the locked position, an exterior latch. "It's locked," I said, my voice hollow. "It's locked from the outside." The next few hours were a blur. They weren't a blur. They were crystal clear. Every second was an eternity. David got on his radio. He called for, I don't know, everyone. The fire department, a specialist. They couldn't just blow it. They didn't know what was on the other side. They finally found a man, a safecracker, from 2 counties over. It took him 2 hours to get there. While we waited, I just sat. I sat on the dirt floor, my back against the cold stone, and I stared at that door. My dad sat beside me. We didn't talk. We just waited. The specialist arrived. He was a quiet man. He had a bag of tools. He knelt by the door and got to work. He had a stethoscope. He drilled. He listened. It took forever. Every scrape of metal, every clink was like a knife in my chest. And then, after an hour that felt like a year, there was a loud thunk. The specialist stood up, wiped his hands, and looked at Detective David. "The tumblers are dropped. That lever should lift." David walked over. He put both hands on the massive steel bar. He heaved. It scraped against the metal, and it lifted. There was a hiss, a rush of stale air from the door's seam. It smelled. "Caitlin, Mr. Miller, maybe you should wait upstairs," David said. "No," I said. I got to my feet. My dad stood up with me. David put his shoulder to the heavy door and pushed. It groaned. It scraped on the floor. It opened. He shone his flashlight into the black. It was a small room, concrete, maybe 10 by 10, and they were there. Their backpacks were against the wall. A flashlight. its battery long dead, was on the floor, and in the corner, I think I screamed. My dad caught me. They were holding each other. "Get them out," David said to his deputies, his voice thick. "Get them. Get the coroners. Now." I saw something next to Aaliyah, a book, a small leather-bound book. "Wait," I said. I pulled away from my dad. I walked past the officers. "Caitlin, don't." I walked into that cold, dark room. I picked it up. It was her journal. I sat on the cellar stairs. My dad and the officers. They gave me space. I opened it. Her handwriting. So neat. So, Aaliyah. The first entry was dated July 14th, 2011. "Made it. The house is a total dump, but kind of charming. Ben is being a goof. He says his grandfather was a certified nut job. He's starting in the cellar. I'm making sandwiches. I think I'll go down and check on him." The next entry was an hour later. The handwriting was frantic. "Oh God. Oh my God. We're trapped." Ben was pulling on an old shelf. It was attached to the wall, but the whole wall moved. "It's a door, a huge metal door. It swung shut. It's a vault. We're in a vault. We're screaming and screaming, but no one can hear us. The door is so thick we can't get it open. The handle won't turn. It must be locked from the outside." I turned the page. My tears were blurring the ink. Day 2. We yelled until our throats are raw. Ben thinks his grandfather. He thinks Arthur locked it, that it was a trap for looters. He thinks the shelf was a trigger. We found a flashlight in Ben's bag. The batteries are, we don't know. We're trying to save them. It's so cold. Day 3, the flashlight is getting dim. It's so hard to breathe. Ben, he's trying to be strong. He keeps saying his dad will come, that Caitlin will know. I love him so much. I'm so scared. We're so hungry. We finished the one sandwich we had. Day 5. It's so dark. He's quiet. He's so cold. I'm trying to keep him warm. I'm so sorry. Mom, Dad, Caitlin, if you find this, it wasn't your fault. It was him. It was Arthur. It was his trap. The last entry. It wasn't even words. It was just a scribble, a line trailing off the page. I closed the book. It wasn't a drifter. It wasn't murder. It was this, the final investigation, the one I wasn't there for. Put the rest of it together. Grandfather Arthur. He'd gone to the hospital for the last time 2 weeks before Ben and Aaliyah ever arrived. He was paranoid to the end, convinced, even as he was dying in a hospital bed, that looters would come for his cans of beans and his shotguns. So before he left, he set his trap. He'd swung that massive door shut. He'd pulled that external lever. He'd locked his empty tomb as a fail-safe. And then he went to the hospital. And he died. He left a loaded gun, and his own family, his own grandson, was the one to walk in front of it. They were never meant to find the door. But Ben, being Ben, he was just trying to be thorough. He pulled on a rotten shelf, and it was all it took to seal their fate. It's 2025, 14 years. We tore that house down. We tore it down to the foundation. We hired a crew. They pulled that vault out of the earth. We had it melted down, melted into nothing. We planted trees. You'd never even know anything was ever there. My parents, they never really came back from it. They're quiet. They're old. The light just went out of them. And me, I have this photo. I look at it. I see their smiles, that bright, beautiful 20-something hope, the whole world in front of them. Sometimes I wonder if I'd pushed harder, if I'd told Ben not to go, if I'd figured it out sooner. But that's the road to madness. The truth is, paranoia doesn't just poison the person who holds it. It bleeds, it spills out, it poisons the ground. It sets traps for the future. My grandfather, in his fear of the world, built a monster, and the only people it ever hurt were the only people who ever tried to help him. I try to focus on the life I have, on my daughter. I will never, ever let her live in fear. But what do you do with a story like this? What do you do with a truth that's this dark and this stupid and this preventable? If you were me, how could you ever learn to forgive? Subscribe if you believe every truth, no matter how dark, eventually surfaces.